Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across. It's turned in. It's Pittman who's got it. Livingston leads.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead.
Man, you score.
If we march to
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We're gonna go.
Hello and welcome back to TalkLivi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Ewan and today I'm joined by Andy and Callum Waugh. How's it going, boys? It's been a bit of a strange week, all things Livy.
Yeah, it has. It's been an interesting week by all accounts at Livingston, but we would have it no other way. It was a great way to sort of end the week, obviously in the cup, but obviously we'll come on to that later. But yeah, been an interesting week for sure.
Definitely, very, very interesting week, but that's what happens when you're a Livingston fan, I suppose, boys.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't come as a shock. It's never dull supporting Livy. But coming up this week, we talk about Gary Holt's departure from the club, our thoughts on his reign and discuss potential replacements. We then look back at the cup game with Ayr United. Could we lift the mood with a win? And finally take a look at our next opponents. It's a home tie with Dundee United.
On Thursday morning, the news broke that Gary Holt had decided to step down from his role as manager of our football club. Despite the downturn results, the overriding feeling from the fans was of support for the manager, so it came as a bit of a surprise and certainly disappointment that he had come to the decision to resign. On his decision, he said the following: "It is with great regret that I've made the difficult decision to resign as manager of Livingston FC. This is not a decision that I've taken lightly, but feel it is the right time for me to step away. I'm proud to say the work we have done over the past 2 years has resulted in great success both on and off the pitch. The progression the club has seen has been remarkable to be part of, and last season's 5th place finish was one of many highlights. I would like to place on record my sincere gratitude to the club, fans and players for all their support during my tenure. I wish nothing but the best to everyone connected to the club for the future and hope there's a great deal more success to come." Gary brought some unbelievable success to the football club, our second highest league finish in our history, a stable Premiership football club, and many, many results and performances to be proud of. We're all bitterly disappointed by the decision, though, aren't we, boys?
To be honest, I'm absolutely gutted to see Gary leave. I think I've gone on record many a time the support and time I have for Gary. Obviously, going in to do post-match and interviews at the club, he's a class act, to be honest. Go from ripping the piss out of you at a post-match interview to chatting to you about a handball decision in the game the night before or something like that. He's just a class act and always made you feel really welcome when you were in the club. And I think any fan should be disappointed to lose Gary because, as I say, he is a class act. I think he was well thought of in the media in Scottish football as well and across the board with other managers in the game as well. So, yeah, it is really disappointing. But, Callum Waugh, fair play to you. You called it last week. You thought he wouldn't be in charge for the game today, and that was the case. I did think it was a bit worrying when Gary came out and said himself that he was going to assess his position because the whole time he's been at the club, I think everyone knows that Gary's pretty straight talking. He doesn't bullshit you. So that was obviously on his mind if he came out with it. I don't think it was just a trick to get players going or whatnot. I think that's genuinely what was on his mind, and that's obviously what's became apparent when he's resigned. There's been a lot of chat about fallout with Martindale and everything. Well, fans just speculating about all this stuff with Martindale, but I don't think there was. I think the statement from both Davy and Gary, I think that is how it was. I think it's just Gary's maybe felt that the expectation of finishing 5th last year, I think it's difficult for him to improve on that at a club of our size with our budget. And I think he's maybe just thought he can't really take us much further. And fair play to him, it's a really difficult time for everyone at the moment to step out of a job where, for me, he was safe in. I wouldn't have seen the club sacking Gary. So for him to step away, I think it shows the type of guy that Gary is, very principled. And if he thought that he couldn't take the team further, then he's decided to step away and give someone else a chance. But I just want to go on record as saying thanks to Gary for, I think, all the boys from the podcast for being so welcoming anytime we've been in the stadium and stuff like that, and for the job he's done for Livy over the last 2 years. As Davy Martindale put it in the statement, the club is in a much better place after his just over 2 years in charge. And I highly doubt that Gary's going to be out of work for long. And I think the next club that he's at should be very grateful to have someone as good as Gary on board.
Alan, you obviously, they called it. You mentioned that you called this, that he wouldn't be in charge for the cup game. What's your overriding feeling towards that decision then?
Obviously gutted that Gary's decided to go. I think all three of us mentioned last week that we believed that Gary was a man still to turn around our fortunes on the park. I go back to his very first game in charge, St Mirren away, and the feeling in the stand that day, we just lost Kenny Miller that week. Gary Holt comes in before that game, and the feeling just within the stands amongst the fans that we'd got the right man. I think that was straight away, and the fans backed him. Even when we went on that dodgy run the second half of that season and the first season back in the top flight, and none of the fans were really calling for his head. We struggled to win games. We weren't seeing out games professionally, and then last season, you look at some of the performances we've put in, managed us to our first ever victory over Celtic in our history. We've been close to beating them again, and with what was it, a 92nd minute equaliser from Rogic, and there's so many instances you could pick out with Gary that he's brought a factor to the club. He's brought that feel good factor back, and that's what made me think last week when he was making those comments that he'd already in his own mind made up what he was going to do. You don't come out in the press and say that just to try and get a reaction. Maury probably, I think if he was coming in for a reaction, he would have said the window's coming up and players need to have a look at themselves for their own future. He's came out and he's had a look, he said for himself, and it's a hard one to probably go and mention. As you mentioned, other people have been commenting on he's fell out with Martindale. It's hard to speculate in any of that. We don't know the ins and outs of anything that's went on behind there, but I think that the three of us will wish Gary success wherever he ends up, unless he ever comes up against Livingston, and then we hope whoever he's managing gets pumped. But we wish Gary all the best. He's gave us probably 2.5 years of that feel good factor that folk have mentioned for years before, and the joys we've had travelling to games home and away, and the joy we've had being Livingston fans again, and that's been absolutely massive. So I just want to put my thanks out to Gary for that, and hopefully he's not out of a job too long.
I think wise words from both of you there, actually, and I agree with all the sentiments you've said, that Gary's brought a remarkable success to the football club over the last 2 and a bit years. And I think if there was ever a manager or a man that fitted the mantra that is Livingston Football Club, I think Gary Holt was that person. He brought in that hard work, that ethic that the football club's all about, that, no one's bigger than the shirt, no one's bigger than the club. I think you've seen it in himself. He was a player that had to work for everything in his career, and he's the same in same in management. He's not sort of altered for that at all. I think he was the perfect fit. You've mentioned a few successes. I think the one thing that he'll probably look back on with regret, as we didn't have a particularly great cup run in his time. But apart from that, the league performances have obviously been pretty incredible, solidifying our place in the top flight and then taking us up to, as we mentioned, 5th place in our second highest position in the league ever in our history. We've made some great signings, we've stabilised the club, we've got a foothold in the Premiership now, and I think that's a lot to do with him and his management style. Players respected him. I've said it now a couple of times. It was just a perfect fit for the football club, and obviously I just reiterate what you guys have said, that a great thanks to him. He's been massive help to us here on the podcast. We've carried in with him, and he's really helped out, and he's supported us, and he's been very helpful with us. And we wish him all the success with his next move. But obviously that has happened, so we have got to move on. So who's next in the hot seat then, boys? I'll give you a quick rundown of the top 10 that are in the bookies' favourites just now. So we've got Martindale and Tony Craig, Tommy Wright, Marvin Bartley, Neil Alexander, Davy Hopkin. We all know about Davy Hopkin. John Yogi Hughes, John Kennedy, Lee Miller, Liam Fox, and Craig Levine. Do any of these names inspire you at all, or is there anybody that should be there that isn't, that you can think of?
I think if you were to offer me a manager just now, I would want Tommy Wright. Whether that will happen or not would remain to be seen, but I think Tommy Wright's gone on record himself after he left St Johnstone that he had an agreement with Steve Brown that he wouldn't take another job until round about this time. And I also think he mentioned along the lines if he sees his kind of future being in Scotland as well, because he knows the league after kind of 7, 8, 9 years working here. So Tommy Wright's one I think he would be a good fit for us as well. It would be my personal choice if we could get him. That is, as I say, remains to be seen. A couple of names I'd kind of thought of, maybe more outside the box. Guys that have been working down south. Now these ones, as I say, they're just out the box suggestions. Graham Alexander was one who's did a very good job at Scunthorpe, took them to the playoffs. Also did a very good job at Salford, taking them up from the conference into the Football League. Again, whether he would want to make the move up north, we don't know. Another one I thought of was an ex-player, which is Graham Coughlin, who had been working down at Bristol Rovers. Did quite well there. Wasn't quite as successful at Mansfield, but again, it would be whether he would want to make that move up north. But again, just the link to the club. Ex-player, played here a couple of years, was involved in a team that won promotion from the first division. So he was one that sprung to mind. And then another one I thought of, again, from down south, was Jamie McAllister, a guy who's been assistant manager at Bristol City, obviously coached their under-23s as well. Might look to make his first steps into management. And again, tied to the club, having played here and as a legend for that goal at Hampden Park. So again, it would be a case of whether he would want to make that move, because I haven't spoke to him on the podcast. He's quite settled down south. So, but those were three kind of more out the usual names that I'd thought of.
Callum, you talked about not speculating, but it's hard not to, as we're all football fans. People have opinions. Livingston fans, do you feel like the setup that we've got in place, with the backroom team, do you feel like that's reducing our options slightly? I know it's a hot topic amongst the fans just now. What do you think of that one? And is there any names that haven't been mentioned that you can think of?
The setup we've had worked for years. I think Martindale's effectively been in the role since Hoppy came in at the end of the championship season without having the title, or the title's never been released to the fans. In the last probably year, 18 months, the club have tried to be more open and honest with the fans about what's going on, and they've kind of released that Davy Martindale is in the role that he is. And a lot of fans have got the speculation that Martindale picks a team, he does this, he does that. We don't know. anything that goes on in the background that way. I don't think it's going to impact us too much, because we've been going for certain types of managers for the last 3 appointments. Folk that are enthusiastic, that are going to come into the game. And do you want to know, when they're coming into the game, they're cheap options, or the folk that've been out their job for a while. We're not a club with a massive budget that can go out and go and spend compensation to get a manager in, or go and spend crazy money on wages to get him in and bring in his full backroom team. We've got a settled backroom team that is, probably in the last 6 months, there has been quite a lot of changes in and around the club. With you look at it, like Alan Scott's leaving, who's been at the club for a number of years. You've got Andy, the physio, who's going to be looking to leave. And now we're going to be looking for a new manager. And out of the list there, I don't think Hoppy will come back. I don't think he'll want to put at risk his legacy at Livingston. He's involved at Morton, his own club, and he is now an investor at Morton, I believe, as well. So I don't see him leaving there. Ewan spoke about Tommy Wright. Marv's basically effectively ruled himself out of the running for the job. And I don't think Lee Miller either would leave Falkirk. It's his own club, and I think he's got too much appeal to be there still. He sees that probably as a project himself in McCracken. So for me, the other name that I'm kind of surprised hasn't been touted about, because he has been for the last couple of times, is Gavin Skelton. Every time Gavin Skelton's name seems to be in the running when we get down to the final 3 or 4. I know he's the assistant manager at Carlisle, so I don't know if there's maybe something in his contract that he can get out if there's waive the compensation, if there's a manager's job that comes up or something along those lines. But he always seems to be one that's there or thereabouts every time that the Livingston jobs came up the last couple of times. And obviously there's something there that the club's seen him. If they've continually taken him down to that final applicants, if he has which I believe he has applied for before, or he's been approached by the club. So that would be one of the names that I was thinking of. But it depends, as Ewan's mentioned with these other guys, moving away in a period of uncertainty, moving up here and to somewhere new. And it's when there's a lot of uncertainty going on out with a football, not even just within football, out with a football. And I think there's probably a potential that it's Martindale or Craig to the end of the season. And then we'll look at it again in the summer, and we give someone the summer to come in and potentially put their own stamp in it a little bit. That's my own personal opinion. And if we go by today, then I don't think it would potentially be too bad an option.
I think you've nailed it, to be honest. It would not surprise me if we go away with what we've got. Tony Craig is a well-respected coach in the game. He's had experience, I think, down at Carlisle. He'd been the sort of caretaker down there for a few games. And as I mentioned, he's been a consistent over the last sort of couple of years at the club, so the players know him and respect him. But yeah, I think the other name that you've thrown out some good names there. I think Skelton was one that I was thinking about just because he's been in the running the last few times. John Robertson as well, who's been mentioned a couple of times. Whether he would leave Inverness for Livingston, I don't know. He's quite settled up there. I think the overall feeling behind that one is he would only probably leave there for Hearts. But you never know. If we go in for him, he might be interested. I agree with you, Ewan. I think the obvious choice for me is Tommy Wright. If we could somehow persuade him to come back into the game. You mentioned that he had some sort of agreement with the St Johnstone sort of chairman that he couldn't come into the game until November time. Surprisingly, it's now November, so there is an opportunity there to possibly persuade him. Is he going to step into bigger clubs in this country just now? Is there going to be jobs available? He'll be eager to get back into work. It's a good opportunity for him to get back into work. Would he be willing to work with a team that's already here? That's a different question, but there is definitely options there. I think Neil Alexander's an interesting name that's been put into the bookies. Obviously knows the club well, is another legend. I think Liam Fox is there. I'm not entirely convinced by him, considering his stint at Cowdenbeath. He struggled big time there. Lee Makel's one we always bring up. I know you you speak about Lee Makel as a potential every time the job comes up. But whether we go down that route of an inexperienced manager when we're in such a not precarious position, but we're fighting for our lives. I think I would rather see us going for a manager that's got a little bit more experience in the top flight. Having said that, there's other options. I think we spoke about it. You and Stuart Petrie at Montrose is doing an absolutely unbelievable job up there. Whether we could persuade him to come up and work with what we've got, Martindale and Craig, who have obviously got experience, and a younger city manager looking to move up in the game. That's another option. Definitely options, and a lot of interesting weeks ahead for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's one of these ones that we've just won 4-0 today. We're doing this on the back of the 4-0 success against Ayr United. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's one of these ones. Where do we go for here?
Do you think that Barry Ferguson would leave Kelly Hearts? I heard a few folk in the radio talking about the potential of Barry Ferguson seeing Livingston as a project to come in and potentially to go on. But Barry Ferguson's got his own background team. That was what was making me think that he wouldn't come, because he'd want Bob Malcolm there with him as his right-hand man.
My view on it is that Martindale's made it perfectly clear the last, when Hoppy left, when Miller left, and he made it clear the other day when Gary's left, that anyone that's coming in, we don't have the budget to go and bring in an entire new backroom team. And we've had a backroom team that's been very successful for the last 4 or 5 years. So, they're going to come in and work with that. That's, I remember Kenny Miller in his first press conference was well aware of that, and then came out saying he wanted to bring in a coach. And I think he was already on to hide into nothing when he came out with that. I think, touching on the Martindale stuff, the fan speculation of Martindale picking the team and everything. I mean, it's not uncommon to have like a head of football operations or like a general manager type role. Right? It's regularly seen in the States. I mean, his title is head of football operations, so he's going to have involvement with the team. And then they're like, well, why is he on the touchline? Well, I think because it's continuity, and he's been on the touchline for the last 4 or 5 years. So why change something that's clearly working? Holt's job was head coach, and that's what Gary Holt did. He coached and he picked the team. So just fed up replying to the rumours and everyone talking about Davy as if he's some sort of mafia overlord at the club. Davy Martindale's doing his job, which is head of football operations. But yeah, going back to your actual point, which was Barry Ferguson, having gone through that, I highly doubt that Ferguson would be coming in. And I think I heard an interview, I think he was on Open Goal, and I don't think he has an interest in going into full-time football yet. I think he sees Kelty as a bit of a project, with Kelty wanting to kind of get into the leagues and stuff like that. So that's not one. I don't think that one's a starter.
Yeah, I mean, Barry Ferguson, yeah, I mean, I might be way off it here, but to me, I just spoke at length about Gary Holt being a perfect fit for the football club. I'm not convinced Barry Ferguson is. I think he's potentially got a massive ego, and that there's no room for that at Livingston. Everybody fights for one another. I'm not convinced that Ferguson and Martindale would work well. I think there'd be a clash of personalities there for a start. So he's definitely one that I think I would probably rule out. But who knows? You never know. It's, like I say, it'll be an interesting few weeks ahead, one that we'll keep an eye on. But yeah, just before we finish again, we'd just like to reiterate our massive thanks to Gary Holt for all the work he's done at the football club. An amazing achievement, what he's done, and we wish him all the success going forward wherever he ends up.
Life goes on, and it was a quick turnaround from the news on Thursday to Saturday's Cup game with Ayr United at the Tony Macaroni Arena. Attention turned to the football again. It was an ideal opportunity to right some wrongs and book our place in the quarter-final of the Betfred Cup. the players certainly showed that energy, fight and desire that's been missing lately with a whirlwind performance against the Championship side as we secured our spot in the last 8 of the Cup, thanks to a brilliant first 15 minutes from the boys, and then kind of just seen the game out, didn't we, guys?
Yeah, I think it was an excellent performance, especially first 45 minutes. Obviously getting the goal in the first minute would settle any nerves that might have been coming into the game. Great delivery by Josh Mullen. We've talked about it. That's what Josh offers. Whether he'll be able to claim the goal or not, I don't know. And then Fitzwater getting the second. Good play by Poplatnik. Could have tried to take it on himself, but he's just kind of helped it on to Fitzwater and he's tucked it away. Third goal, fantastic header by Jack and off the post, and obviously got the fourth as well, which Alan Forrest's absolutely melted from the edge of the box into the bottom of the net. But I think we looked excellent first half. I thought Devlin and Mullen were causing absolute chaos down the right-hand side. I think Ayr were really struggling to defend any crosses into the box. Josh's delivery, Sybil's delivery into the box as well they were causing carnage. I thought getting Sybil back into the middle of the park made a massive difference as well. He got on the ball a lot more often and he dictated the game, I thought, for large spells. Sybil, thought he was excellent. As much as we've questioned Steve Lawson at left back, I thought he had a very solid game there again. Offered a decent attacking threat, obviously went into the middle of the park, and I think you saw the qualities he can bring in that role. He's bringing package about quite the thing and changed the tempo every now and then as well by just taking the ball up and carrying it. But I thought there was so many good performances. Platnick as well, was really impressed with him. I think it made such a difference having someone a bit more mobile up top personally. I think for Platnick, just these little flicks and touches, just kind of spinning his marker and stuff like that, I thought opened up a lot of spaces. But yeah, Ayr really struggled with us first half, and I won't put it down to Ayr being rubbish. I think we were just absolutely bang at it, and we looked like the team. We looked like the Livingston team I expect every week. We looked at it. We were hunting in packs again, pressing all over the park. And to be honest, Ayr didn't get a sniff the whole 90 minutes. You know, we defended really well. We talked about Jack Fitzwater coming in, and I thought he was solid. Obviously, grabbed his 2 goals as well. But you know, the defending, as I say, it starts from the front, and we had a lot of energy in that kind of front four. And I think it showed Ayr really struggled to get on the ball, and it was. I'm sure Gary will be at home absolutely delighted, even after the events this week, seeing Ayr United get an absolute doing. I'm sure he'll be quite chuffed with that. So, it was an excellent performance, and you know, it puts a little bit of a marker down. I think the players have had a wee point to prove this week after the last few displays, and obviously with what's happened. And I think a few folk will stand up and take notice to that.
Andy, what did you make of the performance, considering since Thursday there's been a lot of spotlight put on certain individuals within the team for their performances that have potentially led to Gary probably leaving, that some of the fans have seen. What did you make of performances today from players?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I'll just start by saying that I've never been so happy to be wrong with a prediction in all my life. You know, I think, you know, looking at us today, I think you've said it all there, Ewan, that we looked so much quicker and the energy was there. We came out the traps really quick. You know, like you mentioned, the front four just harassed Ayr United on the ball constantly. It was like the Livingston old. It was almost like the players had been let off the leash a little bit, and that's not me having a dig at Gary at all. It's a strange one, because it's not the performance I was expecting in the slightest. You know, it could have went either way with us. You know, it could have went players feeling sorry for themselves and going out and putting in a really inept performance and almost similar to the previous few performances. But today we were right at it, and there was a lot of players out there proving a point. I think, you know, I've spoken at length about Josh Mullen, how we brought him in and he's barely had a sniff in the side, and he's came in and I think he's created 2 or 3 of the goals in the game. I'm definitely not giving him the goal though. It was definitely an own goal, but he's put in some great crosses. I think you're right. I think we've been screaming out for something up front, an attacking threat. And although Poplatnik didn't get a goal, I think he offered us so much in terms of holding up the ball, putting pressure on the defence, winning flickers. I think he was really intelligent on the ball. I think some of his passes were really intelligent and brought others into play really well. I think you mentioned it. Devlin was excellent on the right-hand side with Josh, and Fitzwater definitely had a point to prove. I think we've probably all written him off slightly. Obviously, we had a little bit of a dig at Callum Brown earlier in the season because he made a huge statement pre-season that he'd be the signing of the season, and it's not quite worked out, and he struggled. And maybe he's just trying to get used to the game up here, because a lot of managers mention it all the time that players come to a different country, even though it's only England to Scotland, but it's an entirely different style altogether, and what I would say is, Callum, I think you made a comment a few weeks ago about Scotland and Livy playing similar ways. Well, Livy today was nothing like Scotland, and I'd mentioned it, we were 100 miles an hour in their faces, pressing really hard for the front, forcing mistakes, and I think you're right, Ewan. That was a massive banana skin, and I don't think a lot of people would have fancied our chances today, me included. Ayr United are a solid side, a championship side. They always push for promotion every year, and I think they got a bit of a surprise at just how good we were in the first 12, 15 minutes of the game, and not just the first 12 or 15 minutes, but the first 45 minutes, the entirety of the first half. We absolutely dominated the game. We were well at it. We could have had another 2 or 3 if we wanted as well. It was night and day compared to what we've been seeing. And whether that's down to a change in mentality for the players, God knows, but long may it continue, I say.
Definitely. I think both of you are spot on. And do you know, after the first goal went in, it went a little bit quiet, and all I heard was Davy shouting something, which seemed to contain a few expletives. And it was basically telling the players, don't sit back, keep going, back to the same intensity that we've just had from the start of the first minute.
I'm guessing it wasn't as eloquently put as that, though.
No, it wasn't, but that's what he was basically doing. He was demanding an intensity from the players from the first whistle. And because we'd scored, he didn't want them sitting back, resting on the laurels that we'd just put. Let's go and make a statement. And I think that's what we got today. We got that Livingston performance back fighting. We're chasing everything down. We're in players' faces. We've only given them time on the ball to turn and face and try and pick out a pass. And there was a couple of little tactical tweaks I thought today with certain individuals. Bartley was basically giving back that Roman role in midfield. He was able to go and hunt in packs and do the job that he was doing last season. Sybil went into the deep lying position, going back to being a little bit of a playmaker, picking the passes, and he also was filling in at left or right back if Nicky or Steve had went forward. We were stopping attacks from happening at any stage there, which we spoke about last week. And for me, I think Sybil's probably one of our best central options at the moment. It gives us something completely different, and it allows probably Marv to go and do a role as well that he's used to a bit, and leading from the front. I've seen that McCowan taking out Pittman, and Bartley was trying to square up to him. I'm not saying that I want all my players to go squaring up to him, but that's my captain leading for the front. He's defending his teammates that are out in the park. We went with the 2 natural wingers today, and Forrest cuts inside, and I still think we lack a little bit of the balance on the left-hand side because we don't have the left footer overlapping when Alan's coming inside. I thought Josh was absolutely brilliant in the first half today. I thought he offered us so much on the right-hand side. His crosses into the box were absolutely spot on, and I think Matty done brilliant up front. I think there was a lot to take out of today's game. We got a clean sheet. That's something that we now need to go and build on in the league next week. It's all about building confidence, and I think that's from the first whistle today. That's what you could see. It was about going and proving a point, and these players have probably been told they're playing for their future. If someone else comes in, they might not want these players if they don't go and make a statement in the next couple of weeks. And that's exactly what we got today. We got players that were out there fighting for the badge. They were out there fighting for every one of their teammates standing beside them on the park. That's what we want to see. And it produced the results today. We got fortunate probably with the first 2 goals. They've taken deflections and they went in. But that's probably the bit of luck that we've been missing all season. How many times have we had those opportunities that they've not taken any deflections off? Last week, St Mirren goal takes a massive deflection and wrong foots the keeper. It's little things like that, but we were back to a Livingston that we're used to. The last couple of years, that's a Livingston we want. And as you have said, we were 100 mile an hour, and that's what we need. That's what we need to demand going forward, because when we do that, we're a better team.
Yeah, no, I think all the fans have been needing a wee boost. You know, we've all been a bit down in the dumps. You more than most. I've never heard you so despondent as you were over the last few weeks. So I think this result is a much needed boost for all Livy fans, especially you, Ewan. But looking ahead then, so that's us now into the quarterfinals, one game away from Hampden. There's been an interesting results in the cup. No bigger surprise than Alloa defeating Hearts today. So Alloa are into the last 8 of the cup. I think Dunfermline are also there. St Johnstone, I think they beat Motherwell. So there's 3 potential ties right away. At the moment, as doing this, Aberdeen are 1-1 with St Mirren. So that could go either way. I think we're all expecting Rangers and Celtic to come through their games tomorrow. So who are we fancying in the last 8 then? Who do we think gives us the best opportunity to progress? I think I know the answer to that one.
Nah, of course I would take, I think every team will be looking towards Alloa. They are sitting bottom of the championship just now. I think we're 1 point from 5 games. So I think if you were to offer any team, top flight side, Alloa at home, I think they would bite your hand off for that. You know, if you were to get a lower league team in a quarter final of the cup, you would have to look at it as a massive opportunity. Albeit Dunfermline have had a very bright start to the season, so I think that would be a massive banana skin. I think Dunfermline would be really up for that game, and they would probably fancy coming and beating us. So I don't think that would be an easy draw either. And St Johnstone have actually been in relatively decent form as of late as well, but they're a team that are kind of, I would say, on a par with us, and I would probably take them. If you could avoid the likes of Hibs and the Old Firm, you've got, I think you'd have a very good chance of getting to Hampden.
Callum, what are you thinking then? Who are you fancying?
It's got to be Alloa. Alloa at Tony Macaroni, and that's us in this. Well, I'll not say that. I'll not say that we're in the semi-final if we get Alloa, because we'll end up getting humped. It gives us an opportunity to go and build on the performances that we've made in the cup so far. Over the next couple of weeks, we've got a couple of games that we're going to look forward to next, and I think that we've got to kind of, this is the opportunity to go and build something. You then go into the middle of December, potentially in the semi-final of a cup after a poor start, and hopefully with another couple of wins in the league. But I would take, as Ewan said, I would take any championship team, any lower end team, and we try and leave the big guns until we get to later on, and hopefully then we can cause a cup upset.
Yeah, I think, as I say, it's not a great surprise, that answer. You know, I think it's very interesting this season, the last 8 of the cup, there's a few really good opportunities. There'll be a few clubs fancying their chances now. You know, there you go, you've got St Johnstone, despite them being in good form all of a sudden. I think most people would have had Motherwell going through in that tie, you know. And do you know something? I would say if we can get our form back, you know, if we can put in a performance like we've done today, anybody outside the Old Firm at home, I would fancy our chances against. And I know that's a big ask to perform the way we have done, given the way we've been playing this season. You know, take out the cup performances, because we've been very good in the cup. You know, in the league we've been pretty dire, to be honest. But if we can somehow get the form back, and you know, put in a performance like we've done against Ayr United, then anybody outside the Old Firm at home, I would fancy our chances against them. That's Hibs included, because I don't think they're as good as what they have been this season. I think they've started to struggle a little bit, although they are still picking up points. They've not been as good as what they were. So yeah, I think it gives us a realistic opportunity to get to the last 4 of the cup. And it'd be something for the fans to really look forward to after being a hard year for the country. Obviously, lockdown, not being able to go to games. I think it would be an ideal chance for something for us to look forward to, and a positive to take from a difficult start to the season.
Finally, this week we're going to take a look at our next opponents. It's back to league business, and it's Dundee United, who are visitors to West Lothian on Saturday. This one's a huge one, isn't it, guys?
Definitely. I think it's, for me, Dundee United have probably been one of the worst teams that I thought we've actually played this season. I think that when we played them at Tannadice, they offered absolutely nothing, but they've been picking up points. They're sitting in the top half of the table, and we're sitting down where we are, and we probably put in our best performance of the season up there, and we played them off the park, in my opinion. I think that we've got the opportunity on Saturday to go and try and get Turner's home form around. We've got the chance to go and put a marker down that, with probably looking at it, it's going to be Martindale and Kagan still in charge next Saturday. And that's what we need to do. For me, it's a 6-pointer for us. And I think that it's an opportunity to put down that marker for the rest of the season going forward. I know I've said that a few times over the last couple of weeks, but the club's going in a different direction now that Gary's not there. There's going to be someone else coming in that potentially in charge. Players are playing for their future. And I think this is one of those games that they've got the chance to go and, looking at the table, it's a team that's ahead of us. They've picked up more points than us. This would be a massive boost for us if we can go and pick up another 3 points.
Do you know something? And I'm going to use the word frustrating, whether you like or not out there.
Whoa.
Come
We're
on,
not
you.
allowed to use that. Andy, that's a swear word now.
Whether you like or not, I'm going to use the word frustrating. The biggest frustration for me this season is we're behind teams like Dundee United and Ross County, who have been absolutely dire, to say the least. Dundee United are a team that I find a mind-blowing, the fact that they're so high in the league. I think we said at the start of the season that they were a team that we weren't expecting much from. For them to be sitting fifth is just incredible, given what we've seen, and given, their own fans don't seem convinced either, to be honest. Reading some of the comments to them during some of the games, they're not even convinced that they're that good and they shouldn't be in that position. So the fact that they're sitting in fifth place above us is so frustrating, and it's definitely a game we should be looking to win. Having said that, how many times have we said that this season? It's a game we should be looking to win. We're at home, our home form, and that's not really worked out the way we'd hoped. But you said it, Callum, it's a new start. Players are going to be going out to try and impress the new management team, or the interim management team, or whoever it is that's going to be in charge. They'll be out to try and boost their chances of staying in the team, and it's an absolutely huge game. I think we called the St Mirren game a must-win. This is without a doubt a must-win for me. I think we have to go into it with a bit of confidence after the Ayr United game, without a doubt. We played some really, really good stuff in that game. And if we can take that kind of performance for the first half into this one, I think we could potentially blow Dundee United away, just like what we've done to Ayr United. I know that's a big call, but I don't see anything from Dundee United to be afraid of. I think we mentioned at the start of the season as well, Shankland was a big name coming into the league. He's not performed at all at any levels that we were expecting, or anybody in the country were expecting. I think we potentially called it at the start of the season that we weren't convinced by him. Nicky Clark's the one that I think we need to watch out for. I think it's 9 goals he's scored this season, so he's definitely the one to watch out for. I think, again, going into the game the last time, I called the Bartley Butcher thing was a sort of massive battle in the midfield, and Bartley got the better of Butcher that night and we dominated the game. I think it'll almost be the same scenario, that if we can get that same thing going, Bartley out muscling, out battling Butcher, I think that'll get us a good grip on the game. And if we can take that forward and keep that energy up from the United game, then I've no doubt we could go in and win this, and it could be a real catalyst for the season going forward.
we're all a wee bit surprised by Dundee United. As you said, a lot of their fans don't seem particularly convinced by them, which I think says a lot. I agree with you. I think Nicky Clark's the one we need to watch. We saw in the last game at Tannadice the quality that he can produce. Brilliant free kick, and I mean that was their only effort on goal that night. The game at Tannadice, we blew them away. I think for the full 90 minutes, I've never seen us dominate a game the way we did that game, especially away from home. So I think it will be a tough game. I think Mickey Mellon's tried to play quite a high press, quite a high line. He might have learnt a lesson from that game and might try and sit off a little bit more and frustrate and maybe try and counter a bit more with the game being away from home as well. So, you don't know what to really expect from Dundee United, what lessons they've learnt from that Friday night game. But I do think it's a massive game for us. I think we need to go into it with a bit of confidence, especially after the performance today. As you say, this is a good opportunity for players that have maybe been out in the cold a little bit, the likes of a Jack Fitzwater, who's come in today and impressed. It's another opportunity for them to go and impress a potential future manager. So I think we need to go into it with a bit of confidence, but we need to approach it in the same manner we did today. We need to be bang at it. We need to press them. I don't know how many changes we'll make from that first half performance, to be honest, for the Dundee United game, because I think it was that good a performance. I think those players have probably earned the right to play next game. And if so, I think if you can get the same work rate, especially the kind of front four, and set the tone from the front end of the park, I think we've got the makings of a good result next week.
Yeah, you touched on my next question, Ewan, there about how do we line up, after such a really, really good performance, albeit against a championship side. Do we make changes to the starting lineup? Callum, you spoke about it a few weeks ago, I think, in terms of how good a performance up in Tannadice it was with Robinson and Tiffany up there, sort of nipping about the Dundee United sort of back line. The other questions, obviously Lawson, obviously we've praised him for the Ayr United game, but that's another sort of question mark that the fans are obviously asking. Does he stay in? What's your thought process with that one?
For me, one of the paramounts to our success over the last couple of years has been consistency in our lineups. We've had a solid base of guys that we would normally pick that are always going to be in the team sheet. This season, we've been changing a lot. I don't think, going by that first half performance today, that any one of those players doesn't deserve to start the game next Saturday. How can you pull someone in and tell them you're not starting on Saturday after they've just put in a performance like that? They've done everything that we've needed today. We hit every marker that we had to hit. We've got the result, we've scored the goals, we've kept a clean sheet, and the performance was there. That's the most important thing for me, is the performance was there. The result helps, but we're getting back to producing those performances. And I just quickly checked there that Dundee United are actually unbeaten in the league since we beat them. So the fans are crying out for, I've seen quite a few of them saying Mellon out, and they're unbeaten in the league since we beat them 2-1 at Tannadice. And it'll be over 2 months since our last league defeat. What I'd give for that right now. And that's just football at times, I suppose. And for me, going back to your question, Andy, I don't think we should change it. I don't think there should be any changes. And I know I have said that we maybe lack a bit of balance on the left-hand side, but how can you tell someone that they're not playing after that performance? And that would be it for me.
Yeah, on the head for me, Callum. I think why change the team when it's just performed so well? I think those players should get the chance next week to go and prove themselves. It'll be interesting to see Poplatnik get a run out from the start in a league fixture as well. He's not had that. He's kind of had minutes here and there coming off the bench. Be interesting to see him. I think I was really impressed with his movement today, and he likes to kind of play on the shoulder of defenders and try and spin them. We spoke about it the last game against Dundee United, the likes of Connolly playing centre half. There's a mistake in him. We saw it in the game at Tannadice. You put a bit of pressure on him. It was Poplatnik that kind of started that. So I think that's an area we need to target with Dundee United. They're quite insistent on playing out as well from the back. And I think, as I say, front four are going to play a massive part in that game. I think they can force their their back 3 or 4, however they're kind of setting up, into mistakes like we did today. And we do that, as I say, I'm positive we can get a result and start moving forward this season.
A week in the life of a football fan, isn't it? Last week we were doom and gloom. This week we're positive and looking forward to our next game. So, having said all that now, predictions. I've had a howler this week, so I'll let you guys go first. Ewan, we'll start off with you. What are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, Andy, just to make you aware, you are now cut adrift at the bottom of the predictions league. I managed to grab another point today because I was still positive despite being negative. But I'm going to go with us to win next week. I fancy us. I think Dundee United will get a goal, but I'm going to go 2-1 Livy again.
Yo, Callum, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go with us keeping a clean sheet. I'm actually a little bit positive after today's performance. I think that if we can go with that team and we keep the consistency up that we played with today and the level and intensity, I think it will be 2-0 Livingston.
Interesting. For the want of not wanting to be too negative, because we've been called out on this a few times, but I am confident, strangely. I don't think there's going to be many goals in the game. Dundee United I know you mentioned about their mistakes at the back, but they aren't losing great deals of goals all of a sudden. They're not scoring a lot, but they're not conceding a lot. I'm going to go 1-0 Livy. I think a nervy afternoon, but we'll come out on top, fingers crossed. Week's a long time in football. I've just said it. Last week doom and gloom, this week positive. Who knows what next week will bring.
That's it for this episode of TalkLivi. Thanks to everyone who continues to tune in to our weekly ramblings. It really does mean a lot.
You can find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also find all links on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so you just need to search for TalkLivi to find us there. But if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find all our episodes we've done over the last few years.
So that's it for episode 20. Thanks again to everyone for listening. But for now, from Andy, Callum and myself, have a great week.
Livingston, a love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ambervale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.